Hello and welcome to Your Government in Action, a presentation of Bahamas Information Services. I'm Carissa Williamson. Marking 6 years post-Hurricane Dorian, Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, led a national moment of silence at the Office of the Prime Minister on September 2nd, 2025, honoring the lost lives, survivors, and heroes of the devastating storm.
We gather as a people, united in remembrance. 6 years ago, Hurricane Dorian swept through our islands with a force unmatched in our lifetime. It left behind grief. It left behind destruction. It left behind memories that continue to weigh on our hearts. We pause today to remember those whose lives were taken, mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, grandparents and children, families that were never able to come back together again. Their names, their faces, and their stories remain with us, carried in the hearts of loved ones and in the collective memory of our nation. We remember the survivors. Many lived through days of fear and uncertainty, clinging to rooftops, wading through rising waters, searching desperately for missing relatives. They endured the unimaginable and then faced the challenge of starting again with little left to call their own. Their courage is a reminder that even in the most difficult of times, the Bahamian spirit refuses to bend. We remember those who rose to help, first responders who risked their own safety to save lives, volunteers who gave without hesitation, doctors, nurses, and aid workers who treated the injured and comforted the grieving, neighbors who took in neighbors, strangers who became family. These acts of bravery and generosity stand as lasting proof of who we are as a people. We remember the children who lost parents, who lost their schools, who had their childhood interrupted in the most painful way. Their futures depend on our willingness to walk with them, to lift them up, and to offer them hope. As we gather here, we must also think about what Dorian taught us. The storm revealed how vulnerable states like ours, how vulnerable we are to climate change. Stronger storms, rising seas, and shifting weather patterns are now part of our reality. Preparation is not a choice. Resilience is a responsibility. We must continue to build stronger homes, protect our environment, and ensure that no island or settlement is left behind. This day of remembrance is not only about the past, it is about what we carry forward, the lessons we learnt, the promises we must keep, and the duty we have to protect future generations. In the silence we observe together, let us commit to being a country that cares for the weak, that remembers its fallen, and that works together to face the storms ahead. To the families who still mourn, know that you are not alone. This nation stands with you. To those who continue to rebuild their lives, know that your determination inspires us all. To every Bahamian, let us hold tight to the values that carried us through, those values of compassion, unity, and strength. In a moment, we will bow our heads in silence. In that silence, may we find the space to remember, to grieve and to give thanks, and to renew our commitment to one another. May the memory of those we lost remain a light in our hearts. May their families find comfort. May their lives inspire us to build a safer, stronger, and more united Bahamas.
Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis, addressed the United Kingdom's Houses of Parliament at the Carbon Markets and Financing Nature Reception in Westminster on September 4th, 2025. Prime Minister Davis highlighted the Bahamas' leadership in climate finance and urged global investment to protect ecosystems and small island states.
I want to thank Bankers for Net Zero, the APPG on Sustainable Finance and its officers, Anna Gilherd MP, Noah Law MP, Lord Goldsmith and Baroness Evans, and all of our partners in the United Kingdom for convening us at this pivotal moment for climate and nature. I also want to extend my warmest regards to His Majesty's Deputy Ambassador to the plurinational state of Bolivia, Mr. Zeno van den Hoek, whom you'll hear from shortly. Bolivia and the Bahamas are facing some of the greatest challenges on land and in the sea: the preservation of our natural world in the face of climate change and economic turbulence. The Bahamas is proud to stand at the forefront of this initiative. As a small island state, we live every day with the realities of climate change: rising seas, stronger storms, and the fragility of ecosystems on which our people depend are daily realities. For us, this is not a distant concern. It is the defining challenge of our generation. But we do not come to speak only of vulnerability. We come to speak of leadership, innovation, and partnership. The Bahamas is committed to showing how nations on the front line of climate change can also be at the front line of solutions, demonstrating that natural capital can be valued properly, financed effectively, and protected for future generations. One of our greatest assets lies beneath the surface of our waters: vast meadows of seagrass. These ecosystems are not only beautiful, they are among the most powerful carbon sinks in the world, capable of storing up to 35 times more carbon than tropical rainforests. They shelter our marine life, sustain our fisheries, and act as a natural shield against coastal erosion. In short, they are vital to our economy, our communities, and our future. Yet, until now, ecosystems such as seagrass have been undervalued in global finance. That is why the Bahamas is so excited to be part of this initiative, anchored by the UK's convening power and the City of London's financial expertise, which is bringing forward the innovative finance models we need. Article 6.2 cooperation, blended finance vehicles, and high-integrity carbon markets can transform the way we safeguard these ecosystems, ensuring they are protected not just as natural treasures, but as assets of global importance. By demonstrating these models in the Bahamas, alongside our friends in Bolivia and other partner nations, we can prove to the world that climate and nature finance is not an abstract concept. It is real, it is investable, and it delivers resilience and prosperity for both people and nature. This is why the Bahamas is deeply committed to working hand in hand with the UK, with the Bankers for Net Zero, and with the broad coalition represented here tonight. Together, we can mobilize billions in private investment, protect our seagrass and our oceans, and build a global movement that places nature at the heart of climate action. Let us ensure that history reflects that we, in partnership across borders, had the vision and the courage to act, and that we turn finance into a force for safeguarding our planet.
The Bahamas hosted over 80 delegates from 16 countries during the 47th Regional Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Conference. The opening ceremony for the conference took place at Margaritaville on September 8, 2025.
May I also congratulate the CPA on this 47th conference of the Caribbean and Americas and the Atlantic regions. It's a celebration, if you will, of enduring democracy. So what makes democracy endure? Is it the written word of the constitutions and laws? Is it the stone and timber of parliamentary chambers? Or is it something more fragile, more invisible? Habits of trust, bonds of respect, a shared conviction that despite our differences, we have more in common. This is the question before us today. And in the Bahamas, we have lived this question for nearly 3 centuries. Our parliament, established in 1729, as you heard, is now 296 years old, the third oldest in the Commonwealth after the Westminster itself and Bermuda. So may I invite you delegates to return in 4 years as we celebrate the 300th anniversary of our Parliament. And I assure we have an elections coming soon, so I want to ensure and assure the leader of the opposition and his deputy that we will also invite them to the celebration. So think of the odds. A small island chain in the Atlantic, buffeted by storms, governed by distant powers, divided by race and class, daring to create an institution of deliberation and representation, and somehow that institution endured. It endured through colonial rule when Parliament was little more than a token of authority rather than an instrument of the people's will. It endured through the movement towards majority rule when Bahamians demanded that our chamber reflect not just a few but all. It endured through independence when Parliament became the sovereign heart of a free nation, and it endured over the last 52 years as we celebrate our independence as a nation. Each of those moments posed the same question: can this institution effectively evolve without breaking? Can it truly serve the people? Our history tells us that democracy in the Bahamas has never been automatic. During colonial times, it was a parliament without representation. During the fight for majority rule, it was a parliament where equality was demanded but not given. At independence, it was a parliament suddenly asked to carry the full weight of sovereignty. And during COVID, it was a parliament forced to consider meeting virtually. In each season, the test was whether Parliament could grow to meet the moral demands of the moment. And in each case, it did so imperfectly, unevenly, but persistently. But this is not only our story. Around the world, parliaments face their own tests. In the UK, the Brexit debates revealed the difficulty of reconciling popular mandates with parliamentary responsibility. In the United States, polarization has tested the limits of congressional debate. The storming of the Capitol on January 6, 2021 was not just an attack on a building, perhaps it was an assault on the idea that disputes are settled through words and votes rather than violence. In South Africa, Parliament became a place of reckoning after apartheid. It carried the burden of building a nation scarred by racial division, embodying truth-telling, reconciliation, and creation of inclusive law. But it too has had its challenges and doubts about accountability, reminding us that democracy and the renewal thereof is never complete. In India, the world's largest democracy, Parliament is tested daily by sheer scale, by the challenge of representing over 1 billion people of different religions, languages, and castes. And here in the Caribbean, our parliaments face pressures that are both acute and unique. The existential threat of climate change, the strain of limited economies and revenue streams, the impact of migration, the uncertainties of geopolitical issues. We represent small populations, but we debate large questions. The future of entire nations, the survival of cultures, the dignity of our people in a turbulent world. What unites us all throughout these stories, whether it's in Nassau or London, Washington, Pretoria, New Delhi, Bridgetown, or Hamilton, is the recurring question: can Parliament withstand the test? Not just the test of procedure, but the deeper test of trust. Not just whether a law can be passed, but whether the people believed that voices were heard in its making.
More of Your Government in Action when we return. Welcome back. Minister of Labor and the Public Service, the Honorable Pia Glover-Roll, told regional parliamentarians that budgets are more than just numbers, but they shape the lives of people. She said this during a session held during the 47th Regional Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Conference held at the British Colonial Hotel on September 6, 2025.
Budgets speak louder than the promises that we make. And they show what matters in our society. So it means that when we sit in our committees, when we sit in our budget hearings, when we discuss the matters in our parliamentary caucuses, when we rise to debate, we have to draw awareness to the most pressing issues of the vulnerable groups. We have to challenge the status quo. That's not just words. We have to ask the right questions. We have to get the answers and bring clarity to our efforts so that when we do plan our budgets and our budget line items, we're ensuring that we're closing the gap for women in particular. So the question that I would like everyone to consider is, when we produce our budgets, how does it affect women and girls? How does it affect men and boys? And how are we closing the gap? How does it affect women and girls? How does it affect men and boys? And how are we closing the gaps? Because that speaks to the equity. We want to ensure that as Commonwealth parliamentarians, and I believe that we're in a unique position to push for budgetary changes that align with our desires for more fair and inclusive societies, because we sit in the positions that allow us to. But we don't tend to ask ourselves the question. We don't tend to be as thoughtful in the process to say, oh, this sounds great in principle, but are we going to have the funds to attach to it? Is it going to be sustainable? And sustainability is another issue we find in budgeting. And the reality is, how do we close the gap? And I want to conclude, because I would like to open the floor for commentary and questions and feedback. But I want to end where I touched on earlier. Placing women in leadership positions should not be about just filling the quotas or ensuring that we have women at the table. We like to say we want to have women at the table. But it's about ensuring that women are looking out for the women and the most vulnerable amongst us, unapologetically. I say this because I believe, and in caucuses like this, I hear women say, well, you know, I don't want to push too much, because they could say, yes, we should push too much, because who else is going to push for us? The men will push for the ideals, the philosophies, the programs that they are bought into. So women should unapologetically advocate for the programs that we are connected to. Preventing violence against women, ensuring that education and training opportunities are available for women, workplace discrimination policies, all of these, if they are functioning well and well funded, all of these components yield significant dividends for the overall picture for our nation. So we must advocate, and we must also ensure that our budgets mirror all of the rhetoric, everything that we stand up in Parliament and say so eloquently. We should ensure that our budgets mirror this, or we put our money where our mouth is, because equality can't merely be limited to the lines that we say in our speeches, but it should be reflected in the lines of our budget. So today I want to thank you for the opportunity to just prick some thoughts in our minds. As I prepared my presentation today, I said to myself, gee, some of these things you could do a little better, realistically. When I sit in a budget meeting or I sit in a caucus, like I said, it is not that difficult for me because I have a portfolio that is predominantly women related or women involved, but I'm also a part of the greater good for the entire cabinet and all of the ministries that are represented. We have to be deliberate in asking the questions. We have to be deliberate in ensuring that we advocate for the cause and not just say it, but actually do it. And with that, we will not only, they say, when women thrive, societies thrive, communities thrive, and the economy thrives. And so ladies and those gentlemen present, I look forward to how we can make progress, how we can stay focused on the questions that we must continue to ask ourselves when we prepare our budgets in our countries, because it is not only important to have the funding in place because we want our programs to succeed, but because it will be a direct impact of ensuring that our nations and our economies succeed.
Minister of State for Housing and Urban Renewal, the Honorable Lisa Ramming, also presented during the 47th Regional Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Conference. The session, focusing on legislative scrutiny from a gender perspective, took place at the British Colonial Hotel on September 7th, 2025.
The Commonwealth is built upon shared values of democracy, human rights, and development. And within this family, the Commonwealth family, women parliamentarians have a crucial role to play by ensuring that the laws we craft are not just to be crafted, but that they are equitable. Scrutinizing legislation from a gender perspective, it's not a favor to be granted to women. It's not a favor. It is a duty to justice. It ensures that the laws we pass reflect reality. It delivers fairness and upholds dignity. As a lawyer, notice I didn't say parliamentarian. As a lawyer, it is my distinct belief that comprehensive legislation is fundamental for an effective and coordinated response to many ills that plagues our society. Legislation, though often assumed to be neutral, is never without impact on the lived realities of individuals. However, when legal and policy frameworks fail to take account of gender, they can perpetrate the very inequality that we set out to dismantle. As lawmakers, it is therefore our duty to examine legislation through the lens of gender justice, to ensure that women and girls are neither excluded nor disadvantaged in the societies we are all working hard to build. Forums like these are very vital because they allow us to share strategies, learn from one another, and reinforce the truth that gender equality is not optional. It is a fundamental democracy and justice. But before I discuss just a few legislations, while scrutinizing it from a gender component, I would like to highlight that the Bahamas in particular is guided by a special component in the United Nations called the United Nations Economic and Social Council. This council has a functional commission. What is this commission? The same commission that my good friend from Belize spoke about, Commission on the Status of Women. It is the world's, not the Commonwealth, the world, main policy-making body dedicated to gender equality and the advancement of women. This is a part of the United Nations that functions to promote women's political, economic, civil, social, and educational rights. In 1995, the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action was laid out to advance women's rights. At the end of the 4th World Conference on Women in 1995, they call it the Blueprint. And I want you to remember that term, the Blueprint. It gave 12 critical issues that 189 countries represented should take note of when considering gender equality among women. They include education, health, violence against women, the economy, human rights, media, and the environment. And at the end, this blueprint was adopted by 189 countries, which means they joined hands with the United Nations saying, in our prospective countries, we are going to fight for the rights of women by implementing and being focused on legislations that specifically include women.
Mrs. Anne Marie Davis of the Office of the Spouse of the Prime Minister and the Bahamas Humane Society received a $10,000 donation from the Cable Bahamas Cares Foundation on September 3, 2025 for ongoing animal welfare efforts. Supporters and leaders of the Bahamas Humane Society also participated in the ribbon-cutting ceremony, unveiling a new air-conditioned van. The timely purchase was made possible by the donation from the Cable Bahamas Cares Foundation and private donors of the Bahamas Humane Society. Mrs. Davis thanked the Cable Bahamas Cares Foundation for its sizable donation and the Society's private donors, which enabled the Bahamas Humane Society to purchase the much-needed van. I'm Carissa Williamson, and this has been Your Government in Action, a proud presentation of Bahamas Information Services. Join us on Tuesday evenings, where we bring you highlights, coverage, and information as we continue to do what we do best, linking people and government.